She was a spy, nurse, Army scout, supporter of women's rights, and most of all, a liberator of enslaved people. Who was this real-life Wonder Woman? It's Harriet Tubman, African-American abolitionist and humanitarian who led slaves to freedom, just as Moses led the Hebrews to freedom in the Bible. Hi, I'm Rochelle Glover, great-great-grandniece of Harriet Tubman. Welcome to the Harriet Tubman home in Auburn, New York, where this courageous woman lived and cared for the aged. The property contains a visitor center, the Harriet Tubman residence, and the Harriet Tubman home for the aged. Have you ever heard of the Underground Railroad? It was a series of safe houses and routes that slaves traveled to reach freedom in the northern U.S. and Canada. The people who assisted the slaves were called conductors of the railroad. Tubman was not only one of the most famous conductors, but she personally took many trips into the South to lead groups of slaves, many of which were her family members, back to the North to freedom. She was proud to exclaim that she never lost a passenger on her train. At an early age, Harriet was struck in the head with a 2-pound weight and suffered brain damage. Throughout the rest of her life, she had visions and dreams that she interpreted as guidance from God, which enhanced her deeply religious beliefs. Later in life, she underwent brain surgery to alleviate her headaches. Harriet used no anesthesia as her skull was penetrated and instead reportedly bit on a lead bullet, as she had seen in the Civil War when soldiers had their limbs amputated. When Harriet was in her late 20s and still a slave, she attempted to escape from slavery with her brothers Ben and Henry. Shortly afterwards, her brothers changed their minds as escape was very risky, and all three returned to their masters. Later, Harriet decided to escape by herself and use the Underground Railroad to aid her journey to freedom that at that time meant crossing the state border into Pennsylvania. Once free herself, she decided to return to the South and start bringing her family and other slaves back to the North. Tubman made at least 13 ventures into the South, risking her own life on the way to bring freedom to the Southern slaves. This is where she acquired the name of Moses of her people. The routes to freedom were dangerous. Harriet packed a pistol with her and did not seem hesitant to use it. It mostly provided her with protection from the slave hunters and their dogs, but it is told that she also used it to persuade slaves that were having second thoughts along the journey to freedom from returning to their plantations. During the Civil War, Harriet Tubman became the first woman to lead an armed assault. In South Carolina, she attempted to guide Union gunships through the Combahee River that was mined with explosive torpedoes. Find out what happened from your guide at the Tubman home. In 1859, William Seward, another famous Auburnian, then a U.S. Senator, sold Harriet the property in Auburn, which now is the Harriet Tubman home. At that time, Auburn was a center of anti-slavery sentiment. Harriet Tubman also worked with Susan B. Anthony in trying to get another type of freedom for a group of people in America. Do you know what the movement was called? Later in life, Harriet donated some of her land in Auburn for the Harriet Tubman Home for the Aged. The building still stands on the grounds where you can tour the interior and see how life at the home was in the early 1900s. Tubman's residence is also on site, currently undergoing restoration and archaeological investigations. There have been several archaeological digs on the grounds to uncover artifacts from the times of Harriet Tubman. You can explore the sites and see what kind of artifacts have been uncovered, including brick kilns and pathways. This site is currently being considered by the U.S. Department of the Interior to become a national park because of Tubman's importance in U.S. history. Harriet died in 1913 of pneumonia at her own home for the aged. She was laid to rest in Fort Hill Cemetery in Auburn. Her last words on her deathbed reflected the kind of person she was. Find out what these comforting words were when you visit the Harriet Tubman home in Auburn.